The deputy AG is just sort of ghosting Epstein survivors now, I guess, after years of the Republicans being the party that was going to tell the truth about Epstein and his relationships with their friends, Alan Dershowitz and Donald Trump. Now it's not just like they've metaphorically, symbolically left the survivors behind. They are actually straight up ghosting the survivors. Let's take a look at what one of them had to say on CNN.
Yeah. Well, and when you ask those questions, does anyone answer? What kind of response do you get?
So far, there hasn't been a lot of official response, to our queries. Even in this, I reached out to the prosecutors who, who got the guilty verdict for Maxwell, saying, what's going on, and they knew so little because they have not been involved in this process. So I wrote a letter to Deputy Attorney General Blanche saying, these are my concerns about what's happening, and there has not been a response. So, I know, speaking with other survivors in this case, that even though so many politicians are talking about this, I don't think anyone has actually been contacted.
So
by
you reached
anyone.
out to the Deputy Attorney General, and you haven't heard back?
Yes.
So that was Annie Farmer, one of the brave survivors who has been outspoken and told her story and advocated for the countless women who have been terribly impacted, not only by Jeffrey Epstein, but his entire network. And especially, according to some of them, one of the worst of them all, Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, Ghislaine has been described by many as the kind of rotten brains behind this whole operation alongside Jeff Epstein. Of course, Ghislaine is friends with Elon Musk and Donald Trump, who goes to bat for her and kind of says that she's actually super nice and a pretty good person. And now MAGA has decided that Ghislaine is so nice, in fact, they are going to transfer her to a cushy, cozy cell at like a fancy Nancy prison, presumably so she can come out and be like, oh, I remember old Don. I never saw him do any of the child molestation. That was the other guys. That was Bill Clinton. Annie went on to tell us a few more things about her story as a survivor who is supposedly being advocated for. And she went into the politicization, is that how you say it, of this whole thing. And it's really interesting because I am very often the type of guy who sees people say, oh, you shouldn't politicize this. And I'm like, no, you should. A lot of things are, in fact, political. A lot of tragedies that they say we shouldn't politicize, like the flooding in Texas and the shootings at all of these schools, people go, this is such a terrible thing that's happened. And it's these opportunists on the left who are rushing to make it political. It's like, no, but like politics affect people's lives pretty much across the board. But the pedophile island is one of those things where I'm like, yeah, well, we shouldn't politicize this because I hope we can be in a country where everyone can sort of get behind punishing the pedophile island people. And the Democratic Party has sort of come out and been like, yeah, if one of our own is in the Epstein files, then we will punish them. And it is worth pointing out that the Democratic Party was not fighting very hard to release the Epstein files during the Biden administration, but credit where credit is due, they are taking an issue that they can win on right now and actually, doing the winning thing. After not being staunchly anti-war, not being staunchly anti-oligarchy, and turning away different issues that could really resonate with voters. Epstein files are something where Democrats have actually figured out that this is something that is a winning issue. So let's hear a little bit more from Annie Farmer while she shares her experience with us.
Annie, one comment that we heard from the president yesterday was, this is being pushed by the Democrats, that it's a hoax, that it's BS. As someone who lived it and experienced it, and as a survivor, I wonder what you make of that.
It's offensive. This is not a hoax. There have been so many people that have come forward and shared their stories. I hate that it has been politicized the way it has, because I think we lose sight of the bigger picture in that. And, I think this is really about people using their power to harm others. And that is not a political issue. I think people on both sides care about the safety of children. And I really hope that that Trump understands that a message is being sent beyond just the individuals involved in this case to the wider community about how we, about the seriousness of these types of crimes.
I know that the go-to when something like this happens is saying, and people wonder why more women don't speak out. But, sometimes something is the thing people say all the time because it's the obvious thing. And it's worth pointing out that, when women come out and share their experiences, including at the Epstein pedophile island and in his larger network, it isn't just the island. A lot of the stories about Donald Trump and his actions and his terrible, terrible acts of human evil that involve Jeffrey Epstein aren't at the island. They're at hotels, things like that. Even when someone is coming out and sharing her experience in this issue that everybody kind of rallied around, they're still getting treated like shit. So it's like one of those situations where if the people who are coming out and accusing Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell of this kind of abuse are being mistreated by the system and being left behind, then who the fuck is supposed to come out and say anything? What women could possibly believe they will be treated anything other than terribly for sharing their experiences? Like, if the Epstein survivors aren't being listened to and respected, who the fuck will be? I think that there's a couple of valuable lessons to be learned here. I think that, of course, the Republican Party is playing cover up for one of the most egregious mass networks of sexual violence and predation we've ever seen in modern history. And they are shutting down fucking Congress to make sure that these files cannot be released. You know this, I know this, but we still have to talk about it, because it's going to be hopefully not a long time, but we have to expect it to be a marathon before we can make anything real happen here. And then we have to wonder, how is Trump going to meddle and try to manipulate the facts in order to get away with it? Shocker, spoiler alert, Donald Trump has a tendency to do that and is not exactly in a romantic relationship with the truth. So, listening to survivors like Annie Farmer is such a crucial part of this, and elevating their stories. These are all such run-through things to say when we're talking about survivor testimonies. But again, that's because they're fucking true. Like, what are we supposed to do? Sorry that it's cliche to say that we need to listen to and believe women and that we cannot leave them behind when they are brave enough to speak out about these things. But it's the thing that's obvious, and it's the thing that's true. There's something called Occam's razor. Dave Rubin accidentally mixed it up with Murphy's Law one time. Murphy's Law is anything that can go wrong will. Occam's razor is the most likely explanation for something is very often the most obvious one because it requires the least amount of speculation. Occam's razor, fucking believe survivors. With Bulwark, I'm Cameron Kasky.